How to create models in Blender when you're used to After Effects. This time on Blended FX. Hey and welcome. I'm an After Effects user by heart. I know my way around Cinema4D Studio and Lite, but I don't have a Max-on subscription, so I'm learning Blender, the free open source 3D model making and animation program. And I'm making these tutorials from the perspective of an After Effects user. I'm not interested in becoming a 3D artist. I just want to know the basics. Modeling, texturing, animating, exporting, rendering, and importing 3D models to convert for Video Copilot Element 3D, Helium X's Helium, and in the near future, After Effects itself. My plan for this video is to make a rock for an asteroid. There's a couple of different ways to do this, so I'm going to look at another method in a later video. In this one, I'm going to shape it myself, which gives me the opportunity to show off the modeling tools. So first off, I'm going to delete the three elements in the object panel. Then, making sure I'm in layout view and object mode, go to add, mesh, cube. Now switch over to edit mode and I get a bunch more tools. But first, I'm going to right click on this cube and choose subdivide. This gives me more sections to the cube instead of just one section per face, and I can subdivide again for even more. And right now I have the whole thing selected, so if I click off the cube, the highlight disappears. Using these options at the top, I can select a single point or drag to select multiple points. You can think of these as similar to the points in a mask's path. Once selected, you can switch to the move tools and drag them around. Hitting G gives you the freedom to move the selection anywhere. But if you don't want to model point by point, using these tools you can select each line or even a face. Now watch what happens when I drag select all of the faces, then switch to the extrude tool. And then just select an individual face and do the same. All these tools down the side can be used to alter the cube's shape. Take the loop cut and knife and bisect tools for example. These have all been disabled in C4D Lite. If I select the bisect tool, then at the top check fill and clear outer, I can start chipping away at my cube as if it was a potato. I do have to tap A to select all each time, but it allows me to pretty quickly make some changes. It takes some time and liberal use of Ctrl+Z to undo, but pretty quickly you can create a rough organic shape. If you make a hole at any time, then as long as you have all the points around the edge selected, you can tap F to fill in the gap. Now this is all very freeform jazz, and it's far more likely you'll be wanting to reproduce something you already have a blueprint for. To do that, make sure you're in object mode, and if you have a front view blueprint, hit 1 to see the model from the front. Then go to Add, Image, Reference. Find your reference image and hit Imports. Then in the lower right panel, I'm calling the Properties panel, go to the Object Data Properties tab and uncheck Show in Perspective. You can also set the size and position and a couple of other things here too. To add a top-down reference image, it's all the same except you set your view to top by tapping 7 on the number pad before going to Add Image. So that's basic modeling. You can also set more primitive shapes instead of just adjusting a cube, but that really comes down to what you're trying to achieve. Obviously, with any modeling, if you're just learning, start simple. Try creating a mug, a table, then maybe a TARDIS before tackling an Enterprise D. If this video is making sense to you, please let me know by hitting the like button. It's really helpful to me, both as a way to encourage me to keep going, but it also lets YouTube know that it should show this video to others. Back to our asteroid, and we need to, well, make it look like an asteroid. And we can use a material to add texture and soften the shape. Make sure you're in object mode and have selected your cube. Then select what I'm calling the Pixar ball, which is the Material Properties tab. And then press the New button. Your material loads in. You can rename this to Rock if you like. Now, in the very top menu, select the Shading Workspace. And we get this scary looking node view. There's no After Effects equivalent that I can think of, The closest is how you use pick whips to link layer properties. Click on the Add menu and choose Input Texture Coordinate. I'm pretty hazy how this works, and Mrs. Cactus has helped me a lot here. Back to the Add menu, choose Texture, Noise Texture, which will give us a fractal noise type look. And then go back to Add, Converter, Color Ramp. Spread these nodes out and link the object from the texture coordinate to the vector of the noise node, and link FAC from that node to FAC on the color ramp, and finally link color to base color on the BSDF node. Each right hand side dot is an output which can be plugged into any left hand side dot. And if I now adjust the noise values, you'll see a rock-like texture take shape. And I can also change the color ramp to help too. And if I now add another noise node and another color ramp, and then link them as before, but this time instead of linking them to the BSDF panel, I'll link the color to the displacement on the material output. And after a moment's processing, look at that. It's still a little, I can still see some sharp edges. So in the properties panel, select the wrench tool, which is the modifier properties, and click Add Modifier. Then choose Subdivision Surface. Bingo! Now, if you wanted to use a texture, you could delete the noise and color ramp nodes and go to the Add menu and go Texture, Image Texture, and then use the Open button to add our texture and link it to the base color. But as you can see, while it looks quite good, it's not great, and there's not really anything I can see about it here. Instead, a better solution is to export the UV map and add your textures to that in Photoshop. To do that, switch the Layout menu to UV Editing. Tap A to make sure your entire object is selected, and then go to UV, Export UV Layout. You get an image file, which you can then edit and add back to the model using the Image Texture node. But that feels an awful lot like 3D artistry to me, and I want a quicker approach. So here's my noise and color ramp nodes back. And now go to Add, Texture, Image Texture. Click the New button, give your texture a name, set the dimensions to what you want. In this case I'm going for 2048 by 2048. We're not going to connect our Image Texture node to anything. Instead, go to the UV Editing layout and press the Tab key to enter the editing mode. On the left panel, use the drop down to select your new texture. Then on the right side, use the drop down to switch to edit mode and tap A to make sure the whole thing is selected. Then tap U to bring up this menu and choose Smart UV Project. Change the island margin to 0.01 to prevent any overlaps and click OK. So now we see all the faces for the rook laid out on the square. Switch back to the Shading tab and in the Properties panel, select the little camera icon. That's the render settings. And change the renderer to cycles. It was on EV for me. EV apparently doesn't support baking textures, but if we render animations in Blender, we'll likely want to use EV. Uncheck the noise threshold checkboxes in sampling and render, and drop the samples from 4096 to something sensible like 25. Then scroll down to the bake section and change the bake type to diffuse, and uncheck the direct and indirect checkboxes. These refer to lighting and would bake in shadows and highlights if you had them on. Now, make sure your object is selected in the user perspective view and the image texture node is selected in the node view. And now click on Bake. And then in the texture map window, click on the burger menu, Image, Save As, and save your diffuse texture. And then back in the Properties panel, change diffuse to normal and bake again. And save this as your normal bump map. Now let's export our rock for Element 3D. Back on the Modeling tab, make sure you're in Object mode and right click and select Shade Smooth. That's like Cinema4D's Fong tag. And finally for Blender, go to File, Export, Wavefront OBJ, and save your model. We can now return safely to After Effects. Yay! In AE, in your comp, add element to a layer and click on Scene Setup. And then import. Find your model and click OK. It's there but tiny. Check the Normalize Size button. Then in the rock texture material, add your UV map to the diffuse texture and the normal map to the bump texture. You'll need to play with the glossiness settings and frankly spend a bit more time than I just did in Blender shaping the rock. But that's the process. We started with a cube, whittled it down, added a texture which we baked. Not bad for VFX compositors, eh? Next time we'll import a model found from the internet and convert it and its textures for use in Element. And after that we'll make a full asteroid field, but we'll make the rocks sort of procedurally.